What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Lakers Outsiders podcast. I am Gary Kester. We are about 24 hours away from the start of free agency officially, even though stuff's already happening, but we're almost there. We're almost there. The anticipation continues to build. Joining me today is the birthday boy, Honi Ahmadian. Honi, happy birthday, man.
Thank you, first of all, but I just wanted to be known that the most important birthday today is Kawhi Leonard's, and because we're basically twins, uh, through the twin telepathy, I'm doing everything I can to get him to the Lakers.
Well, you know why he wears number 2, right? Because he realized his birthday was the second most important birthday on this day.
Oh, wow, that's a really good point.
And with that news, Kawhi Leonard will not sign with the Lakers just because I said that. No, it's been kind of nice. I tweeted this out earlier. The Lakers agreed to the trade for Anthony Davis the day before my birthday. So hopefully the Lakers can get an agreement with Kawhi Leonard the day after
Yeah, I
yours.
mean, it's the least they could do for all the important work that we put in as a duo. I think that the least thing they could do to show their appreciation is to get Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard near our birthdays.
And I think if that happens, Lakers Twitter should send us both like a
Yeah, I
very
mean, like,
substantial check.
I'm not
So
picky. You can give me a nice car. You can pay for my massive student loan debt. I'm not picky. You can choose how you want to show your appreciation, but I'll be grateful either way.
yeah, no,
Or both.
either way, we're
I
fine.
mean,
Yeah, no, if you don't want to send us a check, which I mean you should, but another way you can show appreciation is you can subscribe to the Lakers Outsiders podcast.
yeah,
See how I
that's
did
a
that?
great segue.
Getting better at this. Yeah, no, as always, you can subscribe to the Lakers Outsiders podcast on YouTube, on iTunes, on Podbean, and now on Spotify. So be sure to do that. You can always find it also on LakersOutsiders.com. And if you like the podcast, go ahead and leave us an iTunes review. Those reviews help us out a lot. And you can also leave questions for the podcast in those iTunes reviews. And we will guarantee that we will answer them on the very next pod. So if you want to make sure your question gets answered on the pod, leave it in an iTunes review, and we will definitely get to it. We'll try to do it on the next pod. All right. So, like I said, we're about 24 hours away from free agency, and stuff's already happening. This league is. I was thinking about this earlier today. The way they do free agency is just so perfect, right? Like it's like its own TV show. It's like a running marathon of like I guess it's like binge watching a Netflix series, right? Through like the course of like a week. And then like stuff starts to kind of die down after that. But like, does any sport do this better in terms of free agency than the NBA does?
Absolutely not. I think so. I'm a big soccer fan, and soccer does it pretty well because there's no such thing as tampering, and people will freely talk as much as they want about every player that they want to
God, that'd be
sign.
so awesome in the
Um,
NBA.
it would be amazing. The only thing with soccer, though, is that, like, even more than the NBA, all the rumors and stuff, it is so hard to pick apart which ones are fake and which ones are real. There's like people have been rumored to go to a team for like a decade plus, and it has never happened. The NBA is amazing because it gives you this, and like I get the arguments of people that say they should move free agency up to the draft or even have the draft later or whatever. But like that week and a half between the draft and free agency, where it's just a bunch of speculation and it's this report about this player wants to go to this place, but also this player is talking to this other player about going to this other place. Like it like there have been days where you and I have basically been sitting in front of a phone or a laptop and just staring at Twitter, waiting for the next news to break. And it's not even like significant news. It's, I don't know, Kemba Walker is getting paid this much, even though we already knew he was going to Boston or whatever. It's all these like little pieces of information that keep you glued to it that nobody else
Mm-hmm.
can get close to.
Yeah, I apologize to my employer, but I did like nothing the last 3 days. I pretended I was being productive, but I really wasn't. It was like leaving work uh yesterday, Friday evening, was like, I don't remember what the GIF is from, like a Law and Order show or a CSI, one of them, but it was like an explosion in the background, and like I'm putting my sunglasses on as I'm walking away. Like that explosion was all the work that I didn't do that I'm gonna have to get to. But yeah, and like there's probably going to be like news that breaks while we're recording this. So we'll try to stay on task, but like the NBA is such a revolving door of information that like especially this time of year that so much just so much stuff comes out and like it's it's almost addicting. Like it's a good thing I had a phone charger at work cuz my phone would have been dead by like lunchtime. So yeah, all right, so let's catch up on kind of the latest news regarding the Lakers. The big news that came out today was about the Celtics, actually. That Kemba Walker looks poised to sign a 4-year, $141 million deal with the Celtics. So Kemba, I'm sad to say that I'm no longer a fan of yours. I've been a fan of yours for a while, but you messed up, man. You really
Kemba is
messed up.
Kemba is officially hashtag canceled.
Yes. Yeah, so that's one deal. It sounds like Nikola Vucevic is going to stay with Orlando. Nothing guaranteed there. Al Horford apparently has like a mystery team that is ready to offer him a pretty substantial contract. Which shout out to that mystery team, whoever it is, because you got Al Horford away from the Celtics, and Kyrie Irving seems poised to go to the Nets. We'll talk about Kyrie here in a little bit, but um, a lot of news around the Lakers right now centers around Kawhi Leonard. And before we dive into these different kind of free agency scenarios, we just kind of want to explain kind of how the cap works because I think a lot of people are kind of under the assumption that once the Lakers use up their cap space that they'll have like the mid-level exception, the biannual exception, the room exception, all these things. Doesn't quite work that way. So basically, let's say the Lakers sign a bunch of new players, or they sign multiple new players into their cap space, which I guess that was one part of the news. Is the Lakers are going to get to $32 million in cap space, which is
Yeah,
just I think it's like 700,000 shy of a true max for a 30%, which is 32.7. But it's very very close and playing in Los Angeles with the Lakers, I mean, you're probably going to make up that money, especially if you're a max player.
and
Um,
also from Zach Lowe's column the other day, it seems like people around the league think that the salary cap is going to be about 500,000 higher than it's been estimated at. So we'll find out
yeah,
on Sunday, but that would also help the Lakers get just a bit closer as well.
for sure, for sure. So yeah, basically the Lakers, two major things happened to get them to that cap space because they were at about 23.7 million, if I'm correct, and Anthony Davis waived his $4.1 million trade kicker, or his trade bonus, which would have counted against the Lakers cap, even though I think New Orleans would have had to pay him
Yeah.
that because they're the ones that traded him away. Um, so, I mean, in a way, I mean, people were really pissed off about it because it helped the Lakers get an avenue towards a max slot. But I mean, in a way, he did help out both teams. So, um, plus, we're just probably going to hear that Anthony Davis's Space Jam 2 contract is worth $4.1 million.
They just randomly they found about $4 million in LeBron's couch to add to the budget for Space Jam.
Hey, that's the perks of having LeBron, baby. So yeah, Anthony Davis waived that trade kicker, which gave the Lakers an extra $4.1 million in space. But they also were able to get a third team to expand the Anthony Davis trade, which I guess I'm still kind of confused on exactly how that works because the Hawks traded up for the fourth pick. So I was like, I guess kind of it might be like a 4-team deal. I'm not sure exactly how it works. But anyways, the Wizards stepped in and the Lakers are sending the Wizards a future second round pick. And the Wizards will also get Mo Wagner, Isaac Bonga, and Jamario Jones, which Jones was very clever because the Lakers had signed him to a contract that would basically allow them to include him in this trade and would free up a little bit more cap space for them to get to that $32 million number. So shout out to Rob Palinka and whoever the capologists for the Lakers are, because that was it was a very clever way of kind of throwing some additional money into a trade there. So, and it's good for Jamario Jones because like that guy really worked his ass off to get called up to the Lakers
Yeah.
and played well when he got there. So I'm hoping he gets some legitimate like consistent playing time with the Wizards because they're going to be a team that's like really rebuilding with John Wall probably out all of next year, and Bradley Beal could be on the move somewhere. So um, yeah, a few future Lakers are there now with Thomas Bryant, and it's like watching some of the old old Laker youngsters, the like the second round. It's like the second round or undrafted crew for the Lakers. Um, so yeah, that's how the Lakers got to $32 million in space, which a lot of a lot of reports kind of indicated that they couldn't get there, which was really weird. But it seemed like the Lakers were pretty prepared
Mm-hmm.
on that, and if they weren't, they did a hell of a job recovering. So, um, but yeah, so if the Lakers use all that space to sign new players or just one max guy, they will still have the room exception, which I think is around 4.5 million. I want to say
Yeah.
like 4.6 or 4.7. It's somewhere in that range. So they'll still have that to use on a player, and then they would basically just have to fill it out using veteran minimum contracts, which basically work on kind of an experience scale. They're pretty cheap contracts, usually between like one and I think it's like 1 and 3 million, depending on years of experience. But um, Honey, you and I talked about this earlier, which is a good thing, I guess, for players and for teams, is that in order to prevent teams from signing younger players on minimum deals because they're a little bit cheaper. The cap hit will remain the same basically if teams sign older players,
Mm-hmm.
because the cap hit I think would be around a million and a half or so. I think it depends on the final cap number, but based on last year. So the cap hit stays the same, even though it doesn't really matter because it's a minimum contract. Like you could sign as many of those guys as you want, really, if you have three max guys on the books, like hopefully the Lakers do. So um, it'll be interesting to see what kind of minimum players the Lakers go after, and we'll talk about that in a second. But so yeah, if the Lakers sign new players or a max player with their cap space, they'll have the room exception and then minimum deals. Um, if they sign their own players and act as a team over the cap, and they sign their own players like Reggie Bullock, for example, using or Alex Caruso using their bird rights. Then the Lakers could get the mid-level exception, which is in between 9 and 10 million for a player, which could get you a really good player, but you'd also not be getting like a max guy. So that's kind of how that works. That's my understanding of it. So I wouldn't anticipate the Lakers have the mid-level exception because I think they're going to renounce whoever they need to get to that $32 million number and hopefully sign a max guy. But if not, they could split it up into a couple different probably quality role players to put next to LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Kyle Kuzma. So let's start with that first avenue, Honey. The Lakers are obviously linked pretty much every year to max free agents whenever the Lakers have cap space. It's kind of been that way since 2014. Um, right now it seems to be the train is like all aboard for Kawhi Leonard, but there's also Kyrie Irving, there's Jimmy Butler, there's some names out there. But how are you feeling? I guess like what's your feeling on all the Kawhi Leonard news? Because it sounds like it's coming down to the Lakers and the Raptors. The Clippers are still kind of in the mix, but it kind of sounds like they're fading away. What's kind of your feeling on the whole situation with Kawhi Leonard?
It's really interesting. If we had done this podcast probably, I don't know, maybe 24 hours ago, I would have definitely thought that the Lakers would be a very, very distant third behind the Raptors and the Clippers. My thinking since the finals has basically been that I would have imagined Kawhi would stay in Toronto. Just given the fact that he won there, that they did such a great job with handling his minutes restrictions and all the load management and making sure he stays healthy throughout the season, and the fact that he was able to that the Raptors were able to win as many games as they did with him sitting so many games and then being able to have such a great supporting cast to win the finals. It made sense to me that he would stay there, but you know, he's obviously been linked to SoCal for the past year, and the Clippers have kind of been in the lead there. But it seems like everything that we're hearing over the past 20 hours or so is that the Lakers are definitely still in it, and that they're a much more significant threat to sign him than anybody thought they would be. And I'm not allowing myself to get too optimistic because obviously signing Kawhi would be just the absolute best case scenario for the Lakers, and it would give them, I think, probably the most talented front court in NBA history between him, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. But all these uh, rumors about who's going to be at the pitch meetings with Kawhi, what sort of things he wants to see, the fact that he has um, told the Lakers basically who he wants in the meeting kind of is, to me, a little bit of a sign that he's very much seriously considering them, and it matters to him who is at the meeting for that reason. We're not really hearing the stuff about his meetings with the Clippers. And the only thing we've really heard about his meeting with the Raptors is that it's going to be the last one, just out of, like, I'm giving you guys the last chance to sell me on staying or whatever. Um, so right now, I don't know if I could put
Mm.
a number on it, but I am the most optimistic I have been since last summer that Kawhi Leonard is going to be a Laker.
Yeah, there's been a lot of buzz and a lot of momentum building for the Lakers and Kawhi. And I've always kind of thought, like, I don't know, maybe it's just the pessimistic side of me that, like, things have gone so poorly for the Lakers the last like 6 years that, like, I like refuse to believe that something like this massive could happen where they get Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard to put next to LeBron and possibly form, like, in terms of talent, like one of the greatest big threes ever in the history of the game. But I also haven't bought the fact that the Lakers were never, like, because a lot of reports were saying like they just
Yeah.
weren't a player for Kawhi Leonard, and I never really bought that because, like, this time last year or about a year ago now, every report was Kawhi Leonard wants out of San Antonio and he wants to be a Laker. Like, he wants to go and play back home, and he wanted to play with LeBron James and all this stuff. And um, Sam Amick of the Athletic was his piece today, which if you have a subscription to the Athletic, I recommend you go read it. It was pretty cool. Basically, part of the Lakers' pitch is that LeBron's been kind of openly recruiting Kawhi Leonard. I don't think that's really any secret. Over the course of this past year, there's just been so many reports that he's been kind of
Mhm.
hanging around Kawhi, especially once the season ended. Um, and part of their pitch is that LeBron is willing to kind of take a step back and kind of play off of Kawhi and Anthony Davis. And he kind of understands that, like, he's 34 years old, right? And like Kawhi is in his prime, Anthony Davis is entering his prime. Um, so like he would kind of be that third guy, I think, on most nights. Like, all three of them are so good that it's probably going to just be dependent on the night, like which guy
Mhm.
is kind of in charge, I guess, of things like offensively. Because, like, like I said, they're all three so good. Like, next year, they're probably all three top five or top six players in the game, and they'd all be on the same team if Kawhi signs. But there's been a lot of buzz here lately, and like you said, the past 24 hours that would suggest that the Lakers are a serious player. And I I don't want to, like, put this out in the universe too much because, like, Mark Stein was basically saying last night that an increasing amount of, like, league insiders and basically people around the league are acknowledging that the Lakers are a very, very serious threat to get Kawhi Leonard. And just from a source that I've talked to, that has proven pretty reliable to me, is that the Lakers are very confident. So I've heard the same thing that Mark Stein has reported, that the Lakers are very confident that they can get Kawhi Leonard. Um, So, I mean, that's not coming from Kawhi's side. So I really don't know what Kawhi is thinking. I don't know what his camp is thinking. But I've heard that the Lakers are very, very confident that they're going to get Kawhi Leonard. So we'll see how that plays out, because I think, you take that with a grain of salt, because teams are always confident that they can get certain players. Like I think the Knicks came into the offseason confident that they could get Durant and Kyrie Irving. And I mean, it's still a possibility. Like you don't rule it out, but it doesn't look great right now. So uh, sometimes teams are irrationally confident, but um, there's a lot of noise that the Lakers are in a very prime position to get Kawhi Leonard. So we'll see how it shakes out. Um, I would think the Lakers really don't want to leak too much because they've dealt with tampering charges in the past and all that stuff. And I mean,
It,
they got to wait 24 hours, and then it's like you can leak basically whatever you want. So um, there's there's a lot of buzz around it, and it's hard not to get excited about it.
yeah, and you made this connection yes last night when you were talking to me about this, and again, really want to simmer down expectations as much as possible, but it does have some parallels to the way that LeBron ended up coming to the Lakers, and that there was always
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of smoke throughout the season that hey, this guy might want to play for them, but you don't really know. You don't really know what he's thinking, what sort of things he's going to prioritize, and then as the offseason comes, you just slowly build so much more momentum until you get to free agency. And I mean, LeBron obviously ended up only taking a meeting with the Lakers and not really even taking a meeting with the Lakers, just talking to Magic Johnson and having Rich Paul call the 76ers to say no thanks. Uh, it definitely seems like Kawhi is going to take a little bit more of a pragmatic approach and talk to other teams. He seems to have a meeting scheduled with Clippers, and he will almost certainly have a meeting with the Raptors. And potentially with the Knicks as well. But that same sort of, you said it, the momentum building towards this is what is kind of gearing up to like, hey, Vegas kind of thinks that Kawhi is going to go to the Lakers. Hey, Lakers are really confident that they're going to sign him. There's all these like little tiny pieces of information that individually may not mean anything, but coming out, a day or two before free agency starts seems pretty significant.
Yeah, and it's funny that people are, I don't know, I guess a lot of people are like very naive to the fact that like, oh, well, once the Lakers opened up a max slot, like Kawhi all of a sudden was interested, and it was like, no, I'm like pretty sure Kawhi has been interested
Yeah.
for over a year now. It was just like, can the Lakers get a max slot? And it proved to me that like they had a pretty clear path to it, especially because they were including, which I mean, they including Ingram and Lonzo Ball in the Anthony Davis trade helped send out a lot more outgoing
Mm-hmm.
salary than holding on to one of them. But they could have also dumped one of those contracts if they really needed to after the fact, because I guarantee a team would be more than willing to take one of those two into cap space. So um, it's worked out so far in terms of freeing up the necessary cap space, and the Lakers have done a really good job, a really good job putting themselves in this position. And this is what they've been gearing up for 2 years, right? Ever since Pelinka stepped in office, I mean, it's all about clearing cap space. It started with the D'Angelo trade, and then obviously there's been a number of moves like the Ivica Zubats trade, was to kind of free up some money, and he would have been a restricted free agent. And um, yeah, I mean, there's been a number of moves for them to, well, in like stretching Dang, but just a number of moves gearing up for doing this type of thing. So they're right on the doorstep. Let's see if they can close it out. They're maybe I'm biased, but to me, their pitch to Kawhi is just better than everybody else's that can realistically get him right. Like um, a team like the, as I don't even think.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is an avenue for them. I guess if they renounce D'Angelo, but the Nets can get two max guys. The Knicks could do it. So the Nets, if Kawhi wanted to join Kyrie Irving, it's like, yeah, that's great, and he'd still be in the East, and they'd be a contender out there. Um, I mean, there's been some noise today about Kawhi teaming up with Kevin
Yeah.
Durant, especially with the Clippers, which would be great 2 years from now, assuming Durant comes back and is still a very high level player, which I would think he is. I don't know if he'll ever be what we saw right before the injury, because he was playing at just an otherworldly level. Um, but to me, that pitch just isn't as enticing right now as a prime Anthony Davis and a LeBron that's still very good. you know, making max money playing for the Lakers and you're going to have all these minimum guys lining up. And I think even Brian Windhorst said that like players are lining up to join the Lakers because like there's so much momentum building that they're going to get a max guy, whether it's Kawhi, whether it's Kyrie, whoever. Because I've also heard that Kyrie to Brooklyn's still the front runners to get him,
Mhm.
but I've also heard that the Lakers think that there's a better chance that they could still get Kyrie if it comes down to that. So take that for what it's worth. But um, we'll see what it unfolds there because Kyrie could make a quick commitment to Brooklyn as well. So, um, but the pitch for Toronto obviously is that city. I mean, really, the whole country of Canada loves Kawhi now, and they just won a title. But at the same time, I think an edge that the Lakers have is that they're pitching, and you can and Honey, feel free to add on to this. But like the Lakers are pitching not only like LeBron James for the next couple of years at least, but a prime Anthony Davis, the city of Los
Yeah.
Angeles, that market, playing for the Lakers, like playing with Kawhi with a prime AD, I think alone makes any team a contender. And the Raptors have
Mhm.
good players in place like Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, Kyle Lowry, Siakam, but a lot of those guys are aging players, like entering like their mid 30s. So the window there seems to be, kind of starting to close a little bit, right? Even though they just won a title. And so to me, the Lakers have the best pitch. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
I don't necessarily, I don't know how I would say if they have the best pitch or not, but I do agree with you that to me, it's probably a more significant part of the Lakers' ability to sell Kawhi on coming here is the fact that in 2 or 3 years' time, LeBron might not be here anymore, but you and Anthony Davis will be the face of the franchise together, and we're gonna probably have to you even more help. And this is gonna be a team that can contend for the next like decade, um, and be in title
Mm-hmm.
contention every single season because of you two. And I think like that to me is more significant than the next 2 or 3 years with LeBron, where yes, they have the ability to chase titles and are probably the favorites if they get all three of these guys. But for somebody like Kawhi, who just won a title as being the guy, I think it is really significant and really crucial to tell him, hey, like you and Anthony Davis are going to be running the show in a couple of years, and no other team can really offer you that security with a player of that much talent. Like, yeah, you mentioned the Kevin Durant thing. Kevin Durant is obviously arguably one of the best player in the league right now. Incredible, but he's coming off an Achilles surgery. He's older than Anthony Davis. You have no idea where he's going to be when he finally does return from his injury. Anthony Davis, you know who he is, you know what he's capable of, and you know that a two-man game of Kawhi and Anthony Davis is it can run the league for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't mean to like, I hope it didn't come across as like almost like belittling the Clippers in any way. Cause like by all accounts, like the past couple years, they've been run very well. Like they've done a lot of things very well, especially given that they don't have um, some of those advantages that the Lakers have, right? Like the Lakers have just advantages that come with being the Lakers and playing in Los Angeles that even the Clippers don't have those same advantages. So, um, but yeah, it's I don't know. To me, the pitch is just so strong, which is why I was bummed to see both Ingram and Lonzo go in the AD trade, but it was like having Anthony Davis
Mhm.
next to LeBron as your free agency pitch, even if it wasn't to Kawhi, even if it was to Kyrie or Jimmy Butler, whoever. Like that's just such an incredible pitch. And LeBron is kind of like, I mean, people are going to disagree because like, obviously Kevin Love was kind of more so relegated because like when he was with Cleveland, he became like a spot up shooter as like a stretch four. And it was kind of a similar thing with Chris
Yeah.
Bosh, even though I think some of that gets over exaggerated. Like people act like those guys just went and stood in the corner and didn't do anything else. Like they were still just really good players. It was just like a lot of times they needed to space the floor for their offense to flow more efficiently. Um, But I think LeBron is one of the more unselfish superstars that doesn't have an issue. And according to that Sam Amick piece that I mentioned earlier, doesn't have an issue taking a step back, especially at this stage of his career. Like I think he understands that
Hmm.
Kawhi and Anthony Davis would be two guys in their prime, and like two guys that are, like I said, top 5 or 6 players in the league. And I think the benefit of having all three of those guys is that
Yeah,
you know you could rest one of them, not like at all times, but like a pretty large portion of the season. Like you could rotate like rest days and like come away with like a good schedule
exactly.
to rest one of those guys, because like two of them, any combination of the two, are going to put you in a position to win most games, if not all games. You know what I mean? So um, it would just it would give the Lakers so many advantages. And God, I'd feel so happy for Frank Vogel if the Lakers are able to get Kawhi Leonard, because talk about hitting the jackpot, right? Like you sign on like amidst all this turmoil of the Ty Lue 3-year offer and all this stuff, and it's like now the Lakers are in talks to try and get Ron Adams away from the Warriors coaching staff. And um, I can't imagine. I mean, like I can,
And
and it's
Anthony,
very it's very good, um, but a defense led by Frank Vogel and Ron Adams with Kawhi Leonard on the perimeter and Anthony Davis. And then LeBron, like even during the playoffs when his effort probably naturally ramps up a little bit, like insane, like absolutely insane. And the Lakers would obviously, I think, with the Warriors injuries, who knows how long Clay is going to be out,
hmm
because it sounds like he's going to go back there on a 5-year max offer. Durant might not still be there, but even if he does, he probably doesn't play next year. So, like the Lakers become probably the favorites to win it all, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the Lakers probably screwed up the timing of the Frank Vogel press conference. They should have waited until they signed everybody, so that it would be a lot less awkward. Um,
He wouldn't have had to answer like questions about how the front office works. Like, dude, he's been there for like 2 days. Like, come on.
oh man, no offense to you, but it definitely seemed like you guys wanted to sign Ty Lue more than Frank Vogel. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, for Frank Vogel, who was out of the league for a year and was last coaching the Orlando Magic, um, getting an opportunity with LeBron, Kawhi, and Anthony Davis would be like, I mean, amazing. That would be the pinnacle of your profession.
Yeah, it's like I said, the Lakers would to me instantly become the favorites to win the title. I mean, because like you look at the Raptors, obviously, if they lose Kawhi, they're probably in no position to win a title. The Bucks will be good because they have the league MVP and Giannis Antetokounmpo. They'll probably have Chris Middleton and Malcolm Brogdon back, so they'll have a very good team. But they could also lose guys like Brooke Lopez and George Hill, so they might not be as good. Um, the Celtics are losing Kyrie Irving and Al Horford, which losing Kyrie and replacing him with Kemba Walker, maybe that's an upgrade because like you don't get all the like drama that comes with Kyrie
Yeah,
with Kemba Walker, but Kyrie to me is better than Kemba Walker. So in terms of talent, they've taken a step back, but we'll see. I mean, you never know how like certain draft picks play out. Like rookies could outplay expectations, and
yeah,
they could get and make some trades. Like, teams can do all sorts of things. So it's very, very early in the process. But if the Lakers have Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and then Kyle Kuzma, and then a bunch of Joe Schmoes that they pluck off the street, they'd still be the title favorites. So it would be just an unreal trio. And then Kuzma, I mean, I think would fit in very, very well. Like as much kind of crap as Kuzma got, and like fans of Kuzma got for valuing him over Ingram and Lonzo, which I disagreed with. I thought, to me, I was all aboard the Ingram train, but I had Lonzo very close to him as well, and then
mm,
Kuzma below those two. But fit wise, Kuzma I think fits very, very well on a superstar laden team. So yeah, uh, it's hard not to get excited about it, but um, all right. So in the event that the Lakers get a max guy, which it sounds like at this point it's Kawhi Leonard or bust. I mean, you can't rule out Kyrie Irving. You can't. really rule out D'Angelo Russell as a backup plan because there's been a lot of noise that there's mutual interest, and I've also heard that as well from the same source I mentioned earlier, that there is mutual
Mhm.
interest. But the Lakers have had their sights set on Kawhi Leonard for quite some time. So, um, all right, so let's go through this first scenario here. If the Lakers get a max guy, who are some minimum players? And you can, I mean, if you want to go by like position or whatever, just who are some minimum contracts or some room exception players, basically guys you can get on cheap deals to join um, a team with three superstars that the Lakers would have.
Yeah, so I think number one, we should mention that it is very, very difficult to get a read on pretty much every role player and what kind of market they're going to have, especially with
Mm.
so many teams have cap space this summer, and there's it's a good free agent class, and the role players are really good as well. So I don't really know who necessarily would come for as cheap as we would need them.
And before you go on, I want to add to like teams might feel more incentive to spend this summer because the cap is projected to be around
Hmm.
109 million for this upcoming season, and it jumps to
Yeah,
118 million the year after that. So they might be more inclined to kind of pay some of these role
yeah,
players a little bit more because the cap hit won't be as damaging
right. It's going to be a
moving forward.
significantly smaller percentage of the cap next year. So
Mhm.
I think if we're operating under the assumption that Kawhi Leonard is a Laker, which is an incredible sentence to say, I think their number one priority would be to get a pretty solid point guard. And that would mean somebody who can defend a
Mhm.
little bit, hopefully, and can hit threes and can just at least dribble the ball up the court and then give it to LeBron and let him do his thing. Um, so a couple of names that I've thought of, again, don't know if they would come cheap enough to make a possibility, but George Hill, who just got waived by the Bucks, there's some rumors that he might still re-sign with them, and they're just kind of clearing the cap because he had a $19 million contract with 18 million of it was non-guaranteed. So that cleared up a bunch of cap for them. But
Mhm.
if he is willing to come for very cheap, he would be a pretty perfect fit. And he's obviously played with LeBron previously in Cleveland as well. I would also throw in a guy like Corey Joseph, who's been known as kind of like one of the best backup point guards in the league, but he could definitely be upgraded to a starter at the right price.
Mhm.
And then I have a bunch of different names as well, but I just a fun one because I think it would be kind of hilarious. Isaiah Thomas, who nobody knows what's going to happen with him. He basically didn't play last year with the Nuggets. Certainly didn't really play much in the playoffs. He really has not been the same since he had his hip injury in Boston, and he's lost himself a ton of money for that reason. But the point guard market, especially for starting point guards, is there's not a lot of teams out there that need them. Even a lot of the teams that did have kind of shored up that hole through the draft, like say the Bulls, for example, getting Kobe White.
My boy Kobe.
The best Kobe in NBA history.
Kobe better.
Oh wait, no, I forgot about Kobe Carl. Um, um, and so like Isaiah isn't the greatest fit given the fact that he can't defend and he needs the ball in his hands a lot. But I just think it'd be
Mhm.
a really hilarious idea, especially like with all the rumors about how he and LeBron didn't really mesh in Cleveland and all of that. That would be pretty hilarious.
It'd be so funny to have like I could already see the Lakers winning the title and Isaiah Thomas sitting on LeBron's shoulders holding up the Larry O'Brien trophy.
LeBron's gonna accidentally just raise up Isaiah and be like, "Oh shit, I thought this was."
Oh man, poor Isaiah. Yeah, no, you also you mentioned George Hill and how he's played with LeBron before in Cleveland. Another an important thing to remember too is he's also played for Frank Vogel with Indiana for a few years. I don't know what the relationship is like, but there's that connection as well, and I think he'd be an outstanding fit for a cheap contract, even if you have to use the room exception. Which I don't know how. I guess the easiest way because like I don't know what players will be worth like the vet minimum versus the room exception. Um, but it's like to me, I guess the way the Lakers have to think about it is
Mhm.
whoever you think your fifth best player is going to be, if you get a max
Yeah.
guy, um, that's who the room exception should go to, right? So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
Alex Caruso hopefully is back on a minimum deal. Another guy I like is Trey Burke. So yeah, some names I wrote down like Alex Caruso, Trey Burke, Seth Curry,
Hmm.
and Ish Smith. I've always liked Ish Smith. I think he'd be a quality backup. I don't think he would be a starter. Um, but there are definitely some names out there. Let's go to shooting guards. Who are some shooting guards that you've kind of looked at that you think would make sense?
I kind of put all my wings together, so it'd be shooting guard, small forwards. I think Reggie Bullock coming back makes a lot of sense. The Lakers would lose his bird rights if they're going to sign somebody like Kawhi or Kyrie, so they would have to bring him back either using the minimum or the room exception. I just saw Ian Begley reporting that the Knicks are interested in him, so who knows if he's going to get a bigger deal because of that reason. I feel like I've said every year we do like a free agency podcast about like who are some guys you would want to sign, and I feel like every year I have said Thabo Cephalosha's name, and this will be like the fourth year in a row that I'm going to do it because I love
It's
him.
tradition.
He's such a good player, and everybody always forgets about him. Great shooter. He's a well, not great shooter, but solid shooter, much better than people really kind of think, and a great defender. Trevor Ariza coming back makes sense, but I don't know if he wants a ton more money. He made like 15 million last year, so maybe. And then a kind of other under the radar guy that just got waived by the Knicks today is Lance Thomas, who's kind of like a more of a
Hmm.
3 and a 4 than a 2 and a 3, but he's another guy that can
Yeah,
he like fits a role pretty well.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. There, I mean, they're the interesting thing with this market is I feel like there's a lot of pretty good options for the Lakers, and I think they'll be able to get some of these guys, not all of them, obviously, that'll sign for cheap. But like the thing with the veteran minimum deals, and especially in the Lakers case, I think that would be really interesting is that like a lot of these guys, especially if they sign 1 year deals, are going to get that exposure of playing in the
Hmm.
playoffs, playing on national TV all the time, and like if you know a role player's mindset might be if we get to the finals and I play well, like and you're on an expiring deal, then next summer you could get a good contract, right? That's kind of the advantages of signing on and being a role player on a title contending team is that you might get that kind of exposure and that opportunity to showcase what you can do. Um, so I mean we've seen it before, like it's gotten guys paid in the past, and um, you know I
Yeah,
guess it depends on the player's mindset, but like it is a total possibility. So, but yeah, Kyle Korver right now is with what Memphis,
yeah.
um, and he could get bought out. I would think he's going to get bought out. I don't think he has yet. I haven't seen anything on it because Memphis is in a total rebuild, and Korver is not in that stage of his career where he's probably helping out in a rebuild because he can still be a good shooter on a title team, and he's played with LeBron before. Um,
Yeah.
wait,
It makes sense for them to kind of do him the favor of waiving him so he can latch onto a
Yeah.
contender.
A couple other guys, like shooting guards that I looked at. Wayne Ellington is a free agent and another guy that the Lakers could add and, provide some shooting, some floor spacing, probably off the bench, which would be really, really good. Um, Ian Clark is another name that's kind of flown under the radar really ever since he left the Warriors. I still think he's a quality player, like a good
Hmm.
rotation player, and I think can be had for pretty cheap. Um, Did you? I I just totally like space. I don't even remember because we talked about Jeff Green earlier. I don't even remember if that was off air or if you had just talked about him. But
It was off air. I was literally staring at his name. I was like, wait, I forgot to say him.
yeah, Jeff Green's a possibility. I think he's another quality rotation player. I think you'd have to use the room exception probably to get him.
Yeah.
Um, but he has played with LeBron, and a lot of people I think quickly forget that Game 7 against Boston 2 years ago now,
Hmm.
where the Cavs LeBron dragged that team to the finals. Jeff Green was their second best player in that game.
Yeah.
Like he was big and like came up in some big moments for that team.
I think
Um,
Jeff Green is kind of a victim of how overhyped he was early in his career that now he's like pretty majorly underrated. He's a really, really good player. And he has a really good relationship with LeBron from their time in Cleveland as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, there's definitely some guys out there. I mean, maybe a guy like Gerald Green comes over on a minimum deal. I don't know if the Lakers would be
I
interested, but
100% expect him to sign
um,
J.R. Smith if he doesn't get traded or if he gets waived.
yeah, yeah, there's been rumors about that as well. So we'll get like a combination of the old Cavs back, and um, it'll just be it'll be an interesting collection of players. I bet if the Lakers are going to end up with a max guy. So
Yeah.
all right, let's move on to the big guys. Let's move on to the big guys.
Mhm.
I think there's some good options here as well. Whether you're looking at, and I think the Lakers will probably focus on either like good defensive centers or guys that can space the floor. So who are some guys that you kind of have circled for big guys that the Lakers could possibly get for cheap?
I think the most talented guy they could theoretically get is DeAndre Jordan. I would expect him to get paid a lot more than they can give him, but there's been reports that he wants to be back in LA and he's interested in being with the Lakers. So maybe some funky stuff happens. Nerlens Noel, who was on a minimum deal last year and declined his second year option. He's a clutch guy, so that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I would love JaVale back, and he should be back. Um, Nene is apparently declining his option to stay with the Rockets. He also might get paid a little bit more. Who knows? But he's a guy who can just take up minutes. And like we talked about this earlier before we got on here, but the Lakers really need a center who can just eat up a bunch of regular season minutes to keep Anthony Davis happy, healthy, and then in the
Right.
playoffs, that person is probably not going to play a whole lot. Um, so really,
Yeah.
this is the position where they should spend the least money, but getting a quality player is a good thing. And then a couple other names, Rashawn Holmes, who was with Phoenix last year, pretty good defender, pretty good rim
Hmm.
runner, and then Noah Vonleh, another guy who's a pretty switchy defender and kind of makes some sense.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple names that I'll add. The Lopez brothers. I think Brooke or Robin would be interesting options, both for different reasons. Brooke is, I don't know if he'd welcome an opportunity to come back with the Lakers. Like that's the thing with like these former Lakers like D'Angelo or Brooke Lopez or whoever. It depends, I guess, on how
Hmm.
they view the Lakers now with Magic gone. Um, I don't know if there's still like ill will there, but Brooke would be awesome next to Anthony Davis. Um, and really just on like a LeBron team, just because he's such an effective 3-point shooter that he provides so much floor spacing. And that'd be huge for the Lakers. But Robin, as a that center that you're talking about that eats up kind of some of those regular season minutes,
Hmm.
probably plays like 20-25 minutes a game. Um, as a guy that can defend and rebound and kind of do like all that dirty work around the basket and in the paint. So either of the Lopez brothers would be interesting. Dwayne Dedman would be a really really good get if they could get him. I don't know what his market's going to be like, but he would be such an excellent fit next to Anthony Davis and LeBron and another max player. Um, I am like totally spacing. Did I say Ed Davis? I was thinking Ed Davis.
I don't think so, but I also had him down. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
I
good one.
can't. That's the state of my brain right now. Just like with all this info coming out and whatnot. Um, yeah, no, I think Davis would be a really good fit as well, as a guy that can really anchor down the paint defensively and get, like I said, play that role of playing like 20-25 minutes next to Anthony Davis. And like if you have both of those guys on the floor at the same time, it's like good luck
Yeah.
scoring around the basket, right? Because
Yeah.
every time the Lakers have played the Pelicans in the past few years, it's just like I'm terrified for the Laker players on the court, like driving to the basket, because like Anthony Davis looms so large around the rim. Like him and like Rudy Gobert have that similar effect that it's like it's so hard to score around the basket if they're in the game because they're just always there and they always can cover so much ground and they're just tough to get the ball up and over. So that's kind of who I would look at. I don't remember if we mentioned Marcus Morris. He's kind of like a 3-4 combo, I
Yeah.
guess. There's been some noise that the Lakers would be interested. I've also heard that they would be interested in him. It depends on, I guess, if they could get him with the room exception or a minimum deal. But he's another clutch guy, so maybe they could. But I've heard along with the other reports that are out there that they would be interested in him. So we'll see about that.
I'll
But
throw in a couple other names. Taj Gibson is apparently somebody that the Lakers are interested in. He would be,
mhm,
he's kind of the perfect big man role player that he just does all the little
yeah,
things, and I think he would be a great fit with Anthony Davis. And then let's bring Powell back home. Let's bring Powell.
let's retire him a Laker. Let's send him out with another
Exactly.
championship.
Retire his jersey right after too.
Yeah, it's interesting too because, honey, like you said, like with those big guys, that like the playoff rotation I think is going to look probably a lot different than
Yeah.
the regular season rotation. Whereas like, I mean, you could still see even in the regular season like a finishing lineup of whoever a free agent point guard is, um, with Kawhi, LeBron, Kuzma, maybe, and Anthony Davis at the five. Like signing a guy like Kawhi gives them so many options there, right? Because he can play the 2, 3, and maybe some
Mhm.
cases he plays the 4. I don't know, but um, like the flexibility there, and even LeBron could be like kind of your point guard in a sense. So yeah, the how that all gets managed is really interesting as well. So all right, that's the first avenue of signing kind of a max guy, and then like all the minimum players that we talked about, like all the cheaper players. Um, let's talk about kind of the other avenue. I guess we can break this up into two different avenues real quick because, like I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of noise about D'Angelo Russell and possibly returning to the Lakers, which would be really cool. But at the same time, like I would be at this point, I'd be a little let down because it wouldn't be Kawhi Leonard, even though I love D'Angelo. Um, so let's say the Lakers can get D'Angelo for around
Mhm.
20, 21 million a year, somewhere in that range. Um, who's who's like another player that you would like to get along with him if the Lakers ended up going that route?
I think the number one thing, if it was D'Angelo as the guy that they got, is that they wouldn't have a ton of plus defenders. So I would want really good defensive wings.
Mhm.
And the number one guy that kind of comes to my mind is Danny Green. He had a tremendous impact on the Raptors because the Spurs were petty and wanted to trade him to Toronto for some reason. Um, he's a guy who can hit threes very well. He, I believe, has a record for most threes in the finals. And he is a really, really good defender. I'd also throw in JJ Redick as a guy who is definitely a great shooter. He's not as good of a defender as he used to be, but still pretty solid as a team defender. And then a guy who he might actually be able to be signed a little bit cheaper. I'm not entirely sure, so we might have been able to include him in the other group. But Wesley Matthews is a guy who I have loved for a long time since he was on the Blazers. Another just great defender, great shooter.
Mhm.
He obviously isn't the same player he was because he also tore his Achilles. But he was a legitimately really good pickup for the Pacers after he was bought out last year, and was really really crucial for them in the
Mhm.
playoffs and the stretch run to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I had his name written down, but I was like, as I wrote him down, I was like, I feel like he gets paid a little more
Yeah.
by somebody. But who knows? Like if he wants to, go after a championship with an awesome core group, maybe it's a possibility for the room exception. I still feel like he gets paid more, but um, you never know. Another name I'll throw out there if they did go after a guy like D'Angelo would be Jeremy Lamb. I don't know exactly how much he's going to get on the market. It seems like him and Terrence Ross, I think, are in kind of the same kind of
Right.
market area where they could get paid a lot, but you never really know. Um, so
Yeah.
like two of those guys would be interesting. Patrick Beverly is a popular name. I don't know what his price tag is going to end up being. We've kind of heard, I think, probably around 13 or 14 million, somewhere in that ballpark. So if the Lakers were able to get D'Angelo even for $20 million a year, which his max is a little over $27 million a year. And I wrote a piece on this. It's my pin tweet, shameless plug here, but uh, it's my pin tweet on if you go to my Twitter profile. Um, but I don't know what the market is for D'Angelo right now because a lot of teams don't need point guards. Like the Pacers seem to be locked in on Ricky Rubio. The Jazz just traded for Mike Conley. Phoenix doesn't have a ton of cap space right now. Minnesota doesn't have cap space, even though they're interested in D'Angelo. They can move some guys. They can move if they can get off the Wiggins contract, or if they can move Teague, the Jeff Teague contract, and the Gorgie Jang contract. They'd have space for him. All it takes is one team somehow getting in the mix and throwing big
Mhm.
money at him. But the market doesn't look great for D'Angelo right now, so maybe you could get him cheaper. But if you get him at 20 million, can you get Patrick Beverly for 12 million? He seems to be like, obviously I think he wants to be on, on a winning team, but he's also basically stated as uh openly stated, I think it was like a TMZ interview or something, but like money's going to play a big role. Like he's been a guy that's played on a lot of cheap deals, and like
This is going to be his first opportunity to sign a real legitimate contract.
yeah. So like you don't blame that, a guy like that at all for trying to get like
Yeah.
as much money as possible. We mentioned Jeff Green earlier. I guess, if you do get a guy like D'Angelo at 20 million, you can throw more money at him, because I feel like teams are going to offer him some money, but you never know. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some options out there to get, but I think that's kind of ideally what you'd want to get is a 3-and-D option next to D'Angelo, whether, because like you could start D'Angelo theoretically at the 2 guard as well. Um, or the point guard position, that's kind of the
Mhm.
benefit for him, is that he gives you kind of the flexibility there. So, but I think you definitely have to get somebody that's a good defender next to him, and hopefully somebody that defends and shoots the three really well.
I mean,
So,
really, what they should be doing is splitting the cap space between D'Angelo and Julius Randle.
right, we're just gonna get the whole gang back together next to Anthony Davis and LeBron. Clarkson's gonna come back now that he's signed with Clutch, and oh, just bring the band back together. um, all right, so we've gone through those two scenarios. I guess the last scenario we want to talk about before we sign off here is if the Lakers miss on all those guys. Say they miss on Kawhi Leonard, they miss on Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, even D'Angelo Russell, and they have to break up their 32 million in space amongst role players. Who are, I guess, are there any different names that you would look at to try and kind of fill that cap space that might be a little more expensive?
Um, See, this is the issue with not knowing who is going to get paid what. Because again, like I look at a guy like Danny Green who might get paid a lot of money and he makes a ton of money. Or, I mean, I feel like this doesn't make sense, but people will want to talk about it. But DeMarcus Cousins is a guy who nobody really knows the market for him. He had both good and bad moments of Warriors last year. And so, as a guy who you could get for like a 1 year deal at an overpay, maybe you say risk will have a guy who basically has been an all star level talent, even if he doesn't seem like he's going to get back to how he was pre Achilles injury. But he's a guy that I think if the Lakers end up striking out on everybody, that I think they might look at.
Yeah. Yeah, there, like I said, there's definitely options out there for them. This is honestly, this is a really good free agent class. Like this is a good class to have money to spend. It's a lot better than next year, especially in terms of star power. Um, I just mentioned Kyrie Irving's name, and I think I mentioned this either before we went on or at the start, that news could break like while we're recording this, and it sounds like Kyrie Irving um, is looking like he's going to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, which Laker fans, somebody that Laker fans obviously love to death, said that free agent Kyrie Irving is meeting with the Brooklyn Nets in New York on Sunday, and both sides are motivated to move quickly toward reaching a 4-year, $141 million deal. I don't know if that is any indicator that Kawhi Leonard is leaning towards the Lakers.
I mean, we're gonna assume that it is.
I'm putting two and two together, and I'm gonna, live on this fantasy island, and nobody can pull me off of it. And then he also added, once Kyrie Irving commits to a deal, the Nets are expected to renounce All-Star guard D'Angelo Russell, which allows him to become an unrestricted free agent. And he also added, there's tremendous league-wide interest in Russell. Of course, right after I just said that there's a pretty dry market for Russell. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, we're 24 hours or so away from free agency, and I'm expecting fireworks. Like we've already got, so like if Kyrie is going to Brooklyn, that means that Kyrie's already, locked in with his team. Kemba Walker's locked into his team. So two, max free agents that the Lakers were linked to are like already locked in a day before free agency starts. So hopefully the Lakers have their own max free agent locked in the bag, right?
Yeah. I mean,
wink, wink.
we're obviously kind of joking a little bit about it being an indication, but like to me, it's like we haven't really heard that Kyrie is 100% signing with the Nets until just now. And I don't know, like it made it seem like he might have been waiting to see the Lakers situation, seeing if that was a place that he could go. So I don't know. If you want to look at it in the most optimistic of ways, I think it might be a positive sign. Who knows? But again, temper expectations.
Like I said, the NBA is a revolving door for news, and things change quickly in this league, so you never know. But things are looking a lot better than they did like a couple days ago. So fingers crossed that Kawhi Leonard ends up as a Laker. Hopefully we'll know here in the next like 48 hours or so. Like hopefully this isn't a decision that drags on very long, but it has with some stars in the past. So we'll see. But we did take some questions for this podcast, and we I guess we could just answer those on Twitter. Because we've gone kind of long on this, and hopefully we answered some of those questions for you guys. But yeah, like I said, we've ran kind of long on this, and I don't want this thing to go all day. So yeah, that's gonna do it for us this time. As always, like I said earlier in the podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, and on Spotify. And you can make sure to subscribe to us on all four of those platforms. And then if you leave us an iTunes review, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. You can find all of our work on LakersOutsiders.com. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Yeah, 24 hours, man. It's real. Finally. This is like the longest week ever. But yeah, a lot of stuff's going to happen, and we'll definitely have a pod ready to go once some concrete news drops. There's going to be a lot of rumors and things flying around. So be safe out there. Try not to go crazy over these rumors. Honi, I hope you enjoy the rest of your birthday, and I hope that tomorrow you get an announcement that Kawhi Leonard gave you a big birthday present and has agreed to a deal with the Lakers.
I thought you were going to say, I hope you enjoy your birthday, and I hope Kawhi enjoys his even more.
If it means Kawhi agrees to a deal with the Lakers, if that means him enjoying his birthday more, then you're going to take a backseat on this one, pal.
Here's what's going to happen. At approximately, I don't know, 1 p.m. tomorrow, Kawhi is going to go to LeBron's house in Brentwood. They're going to be chilling. LeBron's going to get him wine drunk, and then he's going to go to the Lakers meeting at 3, and then he'll just sign the contract right there and then.
You know, it would be like, before we sign off, I just want Kawhi to announce his decision in like the most like non-Kawhi way. Like he hasn't used his Twitter account forever. I just want him to drop a tweet being like, dropping like purple and gold hearts or something like that.
It'll be, that picture he has up of the Spurs at the White House with Obama, and it's like everybody makes a joke that the picture is deep fried. It's going to be a picture of his contract with the Lakers with that same filter.
Oh man, just do it, Kawhi. If you ever listen to this pod,
there's a lot of apples here. I will buy you so many apples for apple
time. Apple time. All right, we're getting out of here. We'll be on again here soon, depending on if free agency doesn't kill us. But yeah, Honi, again, happy birthday. Thank you guys all for listening. And that's going to do it for us. So for Honi Ahmadian, I'm Gary Kester, and the Lakers Outsiders signing off.
Shout out to Lakers legend Jordan Caroline.